everyone. I am going to be reading to you an American tale called Swamp Angel. It's written by Anne Isaacs. Now, on August 1st, 1815, when Angelica Longrider took her first gulp of air on this earth, there was nothing about the baby to suggest that she would become the greatest woodsman in Tennessee. The newborn was scarcely taller than her mother and couldn't climb a tree without help. That is a very big baby. Now, although her father gave her a shiny new axe to play with in the cradle, like any good Tennessee father would, she was a full 2 years old before she built her first log cabin. But by the time she was full grown, she was second to none in buckskin bravery, performing eye-popping wonders in the bogs and the backwoods of Tennessee. Oh, wow. There she's knitting. She's helping put a fire out. Well, that would come in handy. Oh, look, she's dancing with the birds. When she was 12, a wagon train got mired in the Digestion Swamp, and the settlers had abandoned their covered wagons and nearly all hope besides. Suddenly, a young woman in a homespun dress tramped toward them out of the mist, and she lifted those wagons like they were twigs in a puddle and set them on high ground. "It's an angel!" cried the gape-mouthed pioneers. Well, ever since that time, Angelica Longrider has been known as Swamp Angel. And to this day, stories about Swamp Angels spring up like sunflowers along the wagon trails, and every one of them is true. Now, once upon a summer in the Tennessee wilderness, there prowled a huge bear with a bottomless appetite for settlers' grub. Why, that varmint would rip the door off a food cellar and gobble up the whole winter's rations without waiting for a napkin. He came to be known as Thundering Tarnation because those were the words most commonly heard when he was spotted in the neighborhood. Many tried, but none could catch that low-down pile of pelts. He was fast and wily, and his fur was so thick the gunshot never reached his skin. Well, before long, Thundering Tarnation had cleaned out half the root cellars in Tennessee, and the settlers were desperate with no food to get them through the long winter ahead. So they sent word across the land a competition to kill that bear. And the reward for the successful hunter was to be Tarnation's enormous pelt, equal to a whole year's hunting and worth a lot more on account of his fame. Now, beyond that, the winner would earn a powerful reputation and the title of Champion Wildcat. I like that picture of that man. He's so close to the sun. He's like, what does it say? That's kind of funny. Now, it's well known, and a fact too, that the Tennessee daredevils are as plentiful as dewdrops on corn. Pretty soon, there was a long line of men in coonskin caps waiting to sign up for the hunt. But when Swamp Angel stepped in line, one of those buckskins called out, "Hey, Angel, shouldn't you be home mending a quilt?" Says she, "Quilting is men's work." "Well, how about baking a pie, Angel?" "I aim to," says she, "a bear pie." Their hoots and taunts didn't stop Swamp Angel from signing up and setting out to find that bear. Now, Tarnation Tarnation left a pretty clear trail. The first hunter was found wearing an empty molasses bucket and a silly grin on his face. Seems he tried the sweet approach and got licked in more ways than one. It took 10 strong men to rescue the next hunter from his own bad trap. Ouch. And the third set out with a hardened hickory club and ended up waist deep in toothpicks. And another was discovered wandering in circles, clutching 2 fistfuls of fur. His head was completely bald, and his beard mighty scarce. Seems he traded pelts with Thunder and Tarnations and got the worst of the bargain. Oh, that's pretty funny. Oh, I especially like how the bear turned his hard club into toothpicks. Now soon Swamp Angel was the only one who hadn't met up with Tarnation until one morning she awoke from dozing in the shade of a creek to find that 4-legged forest of stubble staring at her across the stream, and they faced off for a few minutes. "Varmint," says Angel, "I'm much obliged for that pelt you're carrying." "Grrr," says Tarnation, and then they waded into the stream and they commenced to fight. Oh, y'all, look at this. Okay, so see, look at that little dog. I mean, quite brave he is. I'm saying, look at that. Oh, oh, that's funny. Swamp Angel took hold of that bear and tossed him so high he was still on the way up at nightfall. And even when the first star came out, there was no sign of him, and Angel began to think she had lost him in the sky. Now Angel was bound and determined to get Tarnation's pelt, and just at that moment, a tornado whirled by with a spout clear up to the clouds, and Swamp Angel grabbed hold of it and swung the twister around like a giant lasso in the heavens, and she roped that bristled bandit and brought him crashing back to earth. Locked in a bear hug, Swamp Angel and Thunder and Tarnation wrestled across the hills of Tennessee, and they stood up so much dust that those hills are still called the Great Smoky Mountains. And they fought 3 days and 3 nights without a break. On the 4th day, they wrestled their way into a lake 50 feet deep, and Tarnation pinned Angel to the muddy bottom with one of his gigantic paws. Ooh, that's not good. Man, that guy seems to not know what in the world is going on. He's just sitting there fishing. To get a breath of air, she had to drink the whole lake. Oh, now he notices. That was mighty refreshing, says Angel. But it didn't look good for Angel down in the muck under that mountain of mange. No matter how she struggled, she could not free herself from Tarnation's paw. Then Angel had an idea. She opened her tobacco pouch and emptied it onto the end of Tarnation's nose, and he sniffed and he threw back his head and sneezed so hard the mud flew off the lake bottom and Angel with it. She hiked back 10 miles from where she had landed, and the fight commenced once more. Swamp Angel and Tarnation finally grew so tired they fell asleep. But that didn't stop them. They wrestled in their sleep. And Tarnation snored louder than a rock slide, while Angel snored like the locomotive in a thunderstorm. Their snoring rumbled through the earth, tumbling boulders and shaking trees loose, and by morning they had snored down nearly the whole forest. I could not sleep alongside them. No way. Oh, look at those poor people. They're like, it's way too loud. The second biggest pine tree in Tennessee landed smack beside them. And at the top of that tree was a beehive the size of a hill, oozing rivers of honey. And after 5 days without food, Tarnation couldn't resist. He rolled over in his sleep and sank his jaws into the sweet, syrupy torrent. And as he guzzled and slept, Swamp Angel snored down one last tree. And it fell right on top of Thundering Tarnation, and that bear was dead as a stump and considerably flatter. When Angel awoke and saw what had happened, she plucked off the hat, and she bowed her head and offered up these words of praise. Confound it, varmint, if you weren't the most wondrous heap of trouble I'd ever come to grips with. And that night, Tarnation fed everyone in Tennessee, I can tell you. It was the biggest celebration the state had ever known. And there were bear steaks and bear cakes and bear muffins and bear stuffing, bear roast and bear toast. And to wash it all down, there was berry wine. Now you could hear waistcoat buttons popping as far away as Kentucky. The leftovers filled all the empty storehouses in Tennessee just before the first snowfall. Swamp Angel decided to keep Thundering Tarnation's pelt as a rug. It was too big for Tennessee, so she moved to Montana and spread that bear rug out on the ground in front of her cabin. And nowadays, folks call it the Short Grass Prairie. Now, you may think no more was ever seen of Thundering Tarnation, but that's not the case. Back when Angel threw him up in the sky, he crashed into a pile of stars, making a lasting impression. And you can still see him there any clear night. The end. And take the AR quiz. I should have a link down there where you can go to Renaissance Place. And after you log in with your username and password, type this AR quiz number 12471. Make sure you write it down. 12471. I'll see you guys next time.